On today's episode, we talk about system thinking with process, data, and people. And we also talk about the future is collective. And we also talk about changing the culture around AI and accepting it. Stay tuned. Welcome to the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast. I am Drew Veach from BizStream. I am joined by Mr. Pete Terryn from NuWave.
Good morning.
I'm glad you could make it in.
I'm glad you invited me back.
I am surprised I did.
Me too.
We are in the beautiful Studio Jefferson, right downtown. It's a great studio. I love this. I love the people that work here, and we're powered by Think Tank Thought Leadership. They are a producer. They help us, shoot it, edit it, do all the social posts. They help us put together all of everything from our graphics to even coming up with a name, helping us with that. If you're looking to do a podcast, they are the people to talk to.
Yeah, if you want to be cool, have a podcast. If you're going to have a podcast, do it with Think Tank Thought Leadership in the beautiful Studio Jefferson. It's actually embarrassing how much work they do compared to how little we do.
Really, I was just thinking that I'm trying to think of what we actually do other than show up.
Which we barely did today with the weather.
Exactly. We have an awesome guest today. I'm super excited about this one. Taryn Kutches from Joyn Collective is with us today. Taryn, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad you could brave the snow as well. The
Man,
8 feet of snow that's out there.
Yeah. I know. It just is relentless.
Yeah. It is. And you had quite a hike coming in, too.
I did,
so
from
I
the lake
really
shore,
appreciate it.
Siberia.
You get used to it.
So let's talk AI. I want to talk about, this sounds so contrived because I thought of this title, just aligning people, process, and data around AI and where the gaps are. Mm-hmm. I'm excited because all of us deal with this in such a cool way, working at the companies that we do, that we work in AI, that I want to have that conversation. That's why I was excited to bring you on and kind of get your perspective of that. What are you seeing out there? Like give us some background of give me some background of what led you up to where you're at right now. Cause I think you got a really cool story when I looked at it.
Okay, cool. I'll go all the way back because undergrad sometimes is important and sometimes it isn't. And in this case, I think the story of it is. And so I only mention it because my undergrad is mechanical engineering. And at the time when I went through that program, I didn't want to be an engineer. I just understood math and science. And, the wonderful parents I had encouraged, said, hey, if you go into a career in engineering, even as a woman, it's probably going to lead to a great career in some capacity. So kind of followed that advice blindly and said, sure, I'll go into engineering. But the valuable lesson why it's so important to me now is because it taught me systems thinking. And as you think about, we'll get into AI, people, process, and data.
Yes.
Systems thinking is kind of the bedrock of it all. And so obviously had no way to predict that 20 years ago when I went into mechanical engineering that it would serve me today. And so just a really cool story. But from there, I spent about 8 years in the automotive industry, mainly in sales roles. And what was really cool is could connect with the engineers and understand the tech and then be able to translate that to sometimes or most of the time non-technical buyers. And throughout that journey, I actually started a small company creating and selling and designing backpacks for women and did a Kickstarter campaign. And that experience just opened up my eyes to this world of entrepreneurship and creativity and design and everything that I didn't know when you go from mechanical engineering into the automotive industry, right? And so that whole opportunity was like, there are so many other paths out there for me. And then that led me to an agency here in Grand Rapids called Twist Think. And Twist Think is product development, innovation, strategy, and that's where I really learned human-centered design thinking and innovation principles and best practices, and then, of course, the tech. And I spent about 6 years with them up until about 6 months ago when we founded Joyn Collective. And Joyn Collective is really a business transformation partner. And of course, AI is part of business transformation. And the thing I love the most about it is it takes all the pieces from my journey and packages it into a perfect kind of at the moment where people are at. So it takes a systems thinking, coupled with the human-centered design and innovation and the tech, and kind of brings it together in a way that just kind of meets people where they're at right now of you need to stretch yourself and just think more holistically about change and AI in general. And I co-founded that. I don't know if it's coincidence or if there's something in the water, but with a colleague of mine from TwistThink, and she actually has an undergrad in mechanical engineering as well. And so while our journeys, we're different. She spent some time at Steelcase and others before joining TwistThink. It's really interesting that we both started, and we both happen to be Spartans, so that makes it all the better too. We both happen to have a really similar background and found our way into innovation and design thinking, and then we're able to form Joyn Collective together, and it's just been an amazing journey.
That is cool. We had Christy Hake from GRCC in here and talking about, what should students be thinking about if they want to pursue AI as a path. And I jotted down systems thinking when you brought it up, because I think it might be a cool place to park. If you could elaborate a little bit more into how that does translate into what you're doing. So I think it'd be cool for anybody that's thinking about getting into this and why school is important and where that base helps out.
Yeah, I think that's great. So systems, if we go back to even the title and then what we want to talk about, it's like a collection of things that all work together. And so when you think about a system for an organization, it's really your people, your process, and your data.
Yep.
And so the ability, where we see the biggest advantage for AI today, is figuring out how those three things can work together differently. And so to be able to kind of map a system and think about it more holistically of what happens in different workflows and how does this individual connect back to what information do they get at what point in the process, and to be able to take a step back and understand it from a system level, not just zoned in of like, when I go to submit an invoice, it's a pain in the ass, it's like, that is, but taking a step back and be like, wow, looking at this thing broadly. And so going back to this ability to think in systems and see a bigger picture, what we're seeing is that's where the biggest opportunity is, a kind of aha moment of, wow, if we rethought this system or this workflow, this is where we can really, really add value with AI.
It is. It's a different style of thinking to kind of, like you said, unpack that and then put it back together in a very efficient way.
Yes.
Can we zoom in a little bit more?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So, because there are, if you consider who our audience would be, both of them, they're
all two people,
both people. They're, they might be, they've definitely heard about AI at this point. It's all over the news. Sure. Some people might be business owners, or they might be in a leadership position, and they know that they've got to do something with it. If they're an AI, if they're not sure how to implement it, and you start thinking about systems, like what would be a way, like sitting down and actually mapping out from, can you just kind of talk about how you guys would approach that? And obviously don't give anything away that, you guys want to hold tight, but like how would somebody even just to try something very small with AI and thinking about a process, that pain in the ass process, like invoice submission or whatever it is. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so our process at Joyn Collective follows really three main steps. It's mapping your current state, your desired future state, and then a now near next plan to get there. And that process applies at a whole business level, an overarching business kind of transformation, all the way down to a process or a workflow. So if you zoomed in, and we can use the example of invoicing, right? The first step we would do is we would map your current state. What is happening when? Where are there friction points? Where is data not getting to that should be? Where are people getting frustrated? Where are the bottlenecks? And you map that in a way that we use visual storytelling all the time because, again, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yep.
And the power of just, we go in and we would talk to a handful of people within, the organization and kind of collect all their feedback and then synthesize it and deliver back. Here's a current state map of what's actually happening. And every single time we have done that, some people are like, oh, we already know our current state. And I said, yeah, you know your current state from your perspective.
Yes.
But do you fully understand your current state from your colleague's perspective or your leader's perspective or your team's perspective? And when you can take all that, it illuminates. So we just did it with the client here, and we mapped kind of their data flow across their projects, and it was really clear there's gaps in their data flow from business development into projects, and then at the very end in the life cycle of their projects. And that clarity served as the kickoff point. Like, we know we need to close these gaps, right? This is what we need to do now. And so once we have the current state, we then go into a desired future state and say, let's not worry about the how. Let's not worry about the tools.
Yes.
Let's not worry
Thank
about
you.
the data yet. Let's just go into a desired future. We know where the friction points are. We know where the opportunities are. We know where there's data leaks, et cetera. In a perfect world, what would it look like? How would it be different? And we map, again, a desired future state of what does it look like. And oftentimes, right, that's a pretty fundamental shift. So it's like, you're not going to just turn that on tomorrow. So then that's where the now near next roadmap kind of comes into place. So you understand where you're at. You have shared clarity of where you want to go. How does that connect back to your strategic plan, right? Back to your organizational goals. And then how do you actually get there with time horizons that make it actionable and feasible and drive the momentum. And so those are the three kind of components of our work. And that's typically 30 to 90 days, that whole process, depending on whether we're looking at a process level or a full holistic business transformation.
You mentioned something I think really important in there is because I guarantee the people that are coming to us are going, hey, I want to use AI.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. Well, okay, hold on a second. That's just the tool.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. We'll worry about the how later. Mm-hmm. People that come to us want to talk AI. It's like, we'll get to that, but that'll be way later once we start going through, like you said, where's your current state? Yeah. Where are those gaps? Because then they start seeing, they go, oh, I never realized we had that as an issue. No wonder why I can't get to the goalpost down here. Yep. And even looking at in a lot of customers that we work with, their customers' point of view too. Like you see yourself like this, right. And we got all this great data we're putting out there, but are you? Because your customers see it completely different. Yeah. So to have all that holistic view, like you said, of the entire ecosystem of what their brand is and how it's being expressed out there. Now with those gaps, now let's talk about how do we come up with a solution. And by the way, here's the tool that can do that. Yep. So it's so down the road. And I think that's the part that people, I mean, obviously that's why we're in business and why we get customers is because we know how to solve that. Yeah. But it's such a turn it on its head that we'll get to the AI part, but that's just the tool of it. That's not your upfront solution for it.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, even with all of that too, even with the clarity of here's the gaps, here's the opportunities, here's the tool, here's the plan, we're still people and we hate change as much as we say we do. And so the element of you could have the strongest strategy in the world and the best use case and the best tool for it, but if you don't focus on the change management side of AI, which at the end of the day, you're changing something. When you're introducing an AI tool, or if you're, totally becoming AI first as an organization, like you're introducing change. And so the whole element of mindsets and the behavior change and the communication is equally as important as the tools and the data. And so at Joyn Collective, our kind of operating philosophy is every organization has business architecture, which are the tools, the processes, the data, your org chart, right? It's black and white in some cases. And then you have your behavioral architecture, which is really, kind of symbolic of your culture, of your mindsets, of your organization's willingness to change, of your innovation, right? Your appetite. And if those two things are not balanced, then the success of your transformation initiatives is decreased in direct proportion to how out of balance you are. And we've come across organizations that are out of balance in both ways, right? There's one where it's all the business architecture is so heavy and people have no appetite for change or thinking differently or pushing the limits. And so things get stifled because you have to have an appetite for change. And we've actually seen the inverse as well, where they're almost overly on the behavioral. They focus so much on culture and innovation and being the best team and best humans, but they have no structure in which to express that creativity or do anything with it. And so frustration just builds because they have all these great ideas and appetite, but there's no mechanism to actually get it done or get anything done. It just lives in what we call creative chaos.
Which one is more of a challenge to work with? Because I'm very familiar with one that has an appetite for change, but doesn't have the structure. Like if I were to ask, like, what's the SOP for this process? They'd say, well, I know it.
Yeah.
And we had documented it 4 years ago, and it's in a SharePoint folder somewhere, but good luck finding it, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got super process heavy, but because we're so process heavy, we've got it down. And instead of saying which one's harder to work with, which one would you prefer to work with?
Oh, ooh, that's a great question. I almost prefer to work with organizations that are more tipped on the business architecture, because I love the behavioral architecture side and being able to come alongside an organization and teach them that way of thinking and just kind of bring those different innovation kind of thinking is a core of our process, the divergent and the convergent and then the synthesize. We are also part of an innovation lab as well, which I failed to mention in the intro, but that's such a cool space. And we're talking about, big stuff. Those are from leaders all across the US and the next leader from Microsoft who led the data center of the future. And so we're going to ideate and dream, 10 years in the future, big. And being able to bring that, to right size that to organizations right here is just a ton of fun.
That's cool.
Challenging, but fun.
Do you run into, with the culture side of it, and it's interesting that you're running into more of the, I want to do it, because I run into a lot more of the, we want to do it, but we're very cautious about it because there's this fear still that's around it going. Leaders are fear it a little bit because it's, I don't know, I can't show that vulnerability that I don't know to lead my team. And then the team's going, is this still going to replace us? Or what's the end goal we're trying to do here? I think we're getting past that as it kind of evolves and people are going, oh, okay, this isn't going to replace everyone,
right?
That type of thing. But I feel like I still run into that with a lot of cultures with businesses where they're kind of on the fence. It's almost like you have to sell it to them, but they're willing to buy it. If you can say it in the right language. Are you running into any kind of fear around it?
Yes and no. And only reason why I say no is because one thing that's become so clear is there are leaders today that go into this eyed wide open and are like, I don't know, and I'm going to figure it out. And the journey might not be linear, but we know we have to do something. And I have the courage, the foresight to know that I have to go through this process. And those are the leaders who we want to work with. I say no only because, if we run across leaders who don't quite have that appetite or that same perspective, I don't think we're a great fit for them, right? So trying to convince somebody that they need to change in the midst of, evolution happening right before us, it feels like a losing game. And so I think so much of it comes back to just leadership qualities, and kind of people need to reflect right now of what type of leader do I want to be. And let's be honest, yes, we have frameworks and processes, but nobody knows AI. It hasn't been around long enough to be, I was listening to Brené Brown's book, Stronger Ground, on the snowy, icy drive-in today. And she shared something it was a Daniel Pink book, actually. And he said, we've kind of evolved as humans to being, farmer knowledge, to industrial knowledge, to now knowledge workers. And we're entering this new phase where we're, I think he used systemic thinking, going back to that systems thinking. And it's not about how much you know. It's about being able to connect the dots, recognize the patterns, and kind of go boldly and confidently into the future. Yeah. And so I'm hopeful that we're turning the corner, because I think the fear comes from, well, I don't know. And I've held this place of leadership because I've always known. I've always been the smartest, man or woman in the room, and that's why I'm sitting in this seat.
That's true.
And I think
yeah.
And I think what we're witnessing now, or I'm hopeful and encouraged that we're witnessing now, is the leaders are not positioning, the forward-thinking leaders and the ones that are really ready to take this AI head on are the ones that fully understand that we're in a learning kind of culture and we'll figure it out, and let's move forward together.
That, and I think just the way you've positioned your company too. I think they're going to gravitate towards you going, oh yeah, you handle a ton of AI. I want to work with you because I'm in that same mindset. So you're past that part already and you're ready to okay, how do we do this? How do we figure this out?
Yep.
Maybe I'm just getting all the angry clients. I don't know.
They were fine until they met you, and then they're all pissed
They're
off.
like, I don't want to do anything with AI anymore.
Well, I think what's cool about our model though too is like we're not implementers, right? We don't have we're technology savvy enough to know, you know, the ins and outs, but we couldn't code, you know, a solution or implement a solution. And so even, you know, the Grand Rapids community for us is really excited because it's like, what does it look like when we go to implement, right, some of these solutions that inevitably show up on the roadmaps and on the strategies. And again, the collective is in our name because we very much see it as a collective and group of people working together in this new era, right? You have the organizations we serve, which has the deep, right? They have the knowledge of their organization. They know the culture, they know the process, they know their industry. You have organizations like us who have the frameworks, right? We have a method to how to get to a really clear and actionable AI strategy. And it works. And it's not something that's narrow, right? It's divergent thinking, it's convergent thinking. It marries innovation and strategy principles and practices. And it'll get you to a spot where you can confidently take action. You know exactly what you're doing, when you're going to do it, and how it's going to feed your greater vision. And then there's like the third leg of the stool is technology partners, right? Connecting those and working together. And there was a phrase we had at one point. It was like the future is collective. And I think we mean that in so many ways possible, like collective thinking, collective thought, collective partnerships, and just this idea of like together.
It's a great way to put it because that is literally what it looks like. That is literally, I think all of us would agree with that, that's what the future looks like.
Yeah,
I agree. I want to share a really quick story and then get your opinion on something because it goes into what you're talking about. So last week, I got invited to this thing with Microsoft in New York. They were doing a bunch of stuff with AI for partners and things like that. And without getting into the details, I cannot imagine how much money they spent on this event. Like there are people walking around like, do you want some duck? Like literally as I'm sitting there like waiting for this event to start, like duck. Like, yeah, I've never eaten duck before. So I never tried
like
this.
appetizer.
Like an appetizer, yeah. Not like a whole duck on a plate.
the visual that was going through your head.
We're
was like,
different, I think. I'm like,
I'm in the airport. I got a duck under my arm, like, carrying it through TS
like
Life.
a rubber duck. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Where is this going?
No. Anyway, well, yeah, that went sideways quick.
Your weird events.
So they're showing some demos, and they're showing on the screen different things and workflows and automations, but it's all still has to be built in Copilot Studio and all this stuff. And the thought that I had in my mind is that's really cool, but 90% of companies are never going to implement it because they don't have somebody that can start from scratch and map to all of everything that you've talked about so far, mapping out your workflows, figuring out the people side and where's your data. So it's cool, but who's going to implement that? And I think what you're describing is rare. Like what you can do is rare, and what the collective is doing is rare. And I think sometimes you almost have to be outside the company to do it because you can be too close to it. But there's a real place for you guys, and companies don't have people like that. And that's I think what people are so afraid that jobs are going to be replaced in 2 years. It's going to take 10 years for some of these companies to even get this figured out. I think that rate of change, the technology will be so far ahead of us. The people part is what's going to take a long time.
Exactly.
So you're shaking nodding your head. Yes, you're acknowledging that. But I guess my question is, one, I want to get your opinion on that. And the other one is, when you've worked with a company, have you seen an individual within the organization, like a light bulb come on, and then they could go on without you after you were done with your engagement? Or is it your feeling that they're always going to have somebody come in and do that kind of work for them?
Yeah, I'll go back to the Microsoft event and then follow on your question. I think what's so interesting about what you described in our language, they gave you business architecture. they weren't even thinking about the behavioral architecture.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of the work that we do is just getting the strategy really is in the behavioral architecture. It's taking the company along and the people along for the journey of how do you decide what to implement. You know, weigh-in equals buy-in, all of those types of things. And so you see something like that. And, you know, Microsoft is an animal of its own, I've come to realize. So one of our partners in our innovation lab, Regenerous Labs, mentioned she was from Microsoft, and her and a colleague authored a book called The Insider's Guide to Innovation at Microsoft. He is still there, and I get the opportunity to meet with him, you know, from time to time, and he's tasked with figuring out how do Microsoft's engineers become AI first. So he has 500, you know, left-brained, you know, engineers, coders, and he's trying to get them to figure out, and he's approaching it with behavior change first, which is just really cool. And we had a chance to talk with him about it. But I would say, you know, for those that are fear or even here being in West Michigan, thinking we're so far behind, Microsoft is pretty much in par with where we all are of trying to figure out what does this mean for our organization and how do we get people to think differently and work differently. And so maybe it's just a comment that you're not behind. I think right now is a great time to roll up the sleeves and to figure it out because they are making progress, right? They are progressing, they are getting the clarity, but you're not lifetimes behind.
Do you think? So I'm starting to wonder if people really should roll up their sleeves or if they should just step back and say, I need help. Bring in Joyn Collective because we're not going to figure this shit out on our own. We just don't think that way. And that's my whole takeaway from that event and meeting with clients and everything is that they just don't think that way. Everybody thinks differently.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of humans, right? Is we all bring our different strengths and things to the table. But you have if you're not implementing AI in your organization right now, I think you have to ask for help.
Yep.
Like you have to be okay today to just admit that you're not there. And if you look around and nobody else is doing anything in your organization, you just have to say, I need help. Like put the white flag up and just surrender and stop trying to think that it's just going to land in your lap because it's not going to.
And I think there's a couple ways to do that too, because dealing with small businesses and dealing with mid-size and enterprise businesses, it's a big difference in that cultural mindset where the big players can't go to an event and go, yeah, we don't know anything about AI and we're trying to figure it out, but we have millions of dollars of resources and a whole team of people, but we don't know what we're doing. They can't do that. That's a competitive advantage that you're going to lose. Versus a smaller business where you can be vulnerable, where you have to be vulnerable because you have no other choice to
That's
go,
a good point.
I need help. Who is out there to do it? So to be able to, like you said, get to that point where I need to ask for help, you can still do that in private and reach out to resources that are around and go, okay, here's where we're at with it. Here's where we want to have help. Can you come in and talk with us and help us figure this out?
Yeah.
Sure. You know,
and I mean,
behind closed doors type of thing.
Yeah, I think the thing that I wish more people embraced was like, you shouldn't be an expert in AI, right? Like our organizations are figuring it out. We're developing the frameworks and we have the luxury of spending most of our days thinking about AI and strategy and transformation. The businesses we serve don't, right? They have the day-to-day operations of the organization that are still happening and still need to happen. And so I wish more people kind of embraced the fact that business leaders shouldn't necessarily be experts about AI, and it shouldn't be a bad thing. Like, I don't know. It's like the beauty is like you have the knowledge that we need to harness to do our job. We have the frameworks because that's our business, right? That's what we can focus on. And the beauty or the collective is when you bring those two things together, it's not a sign of weakness or it's not a sign of knowledge. It's just like I've spent the last 6 years being in technology and AI and innovation, so I actually better know more than you do because if you've spent the last decade in manufacturing and it's like it's embracing the craft that I think the partnerships bring, and it's not a sign of weakness to call and help. It's like this is what you do, right? This is what you do. This is your craft. And our craft is manufacturing or our craft is construction, right? Whatever it may be, it's not so much, AI. And so to go back to your comments, like when we get these roadmaps, right? And we're listening, and what we're doing is we're taking our partners' knowledge and insights and perspective in industry. We're coupling that with our outside perspective. We're delivering the insights and the actions. And that's what we call as our offering is Joyn Activated, right? We get you started, get you going. We do have an offering called Joyn Embedded, which is where we're really helping you drive the initiatives in the roadmap. And there's really two key components of Joyn Embedded for us, and that's strategic orchestration. That's making sure that the initiatives right in your now, your near, and your next are getting completed, right? Is there a charter done? We're connecting invisible dots. Maybe there's a charter happening here, and we have monthly cadences and check-ins, and it's making sure that the strategic orchestration of all the activities is getting done. We're an accountability partner, which, face it, we all need, right?
Yes.
And then the other half is change management. And that's where we're really understanding, right, the people. We're helping them with communication narratives. We kind of we take a mindset and cascade it throughout the organization. So for year one, right, like one of the mindsets we just rolled out was people were using AI tools to get their work done faster. It's like efficiency, which in some cases that's perfectly appropriate. But the shift we were trying to enable with all the actions on the roadmap was going from AI makes us more efficient to AI allows us to deliver completely new value. And when you think about it that way, and somebody really embraces that, efficiency is where the fear creeps in. It's like, oh, my job's going to get taken. It's more efficiency. When you think about it as it allows me to create more value, it's like the repurposing. And we've seen the team get way more excited about, oh my gosh, if it makes me more efficient, like what can I do with that extra 30% of my time or 25% of my time? Then your role doesn't feel like it's at risk. It's like it's being elevated, and you multiply that across an organization and the lift you're going to get from that. And so the change management side is really, it's that communication, it's the mindsets, it's the thinking that's going to carry all the completion of the actions really to the finish line.
Yeah. I wanted, that was really well said. I want to go back to something you said earlier too, when we're talking about, asking for help in that, and people having kind of their own area of expertise. Yeah. You spent all this time in manufacturing, so you're a manufacturing expert. But for me, I'm having trouble forming sentences this morning. I don't know,
it's a snow,
coffee or snow or whatever. But I guess the point I'm trying to get across is you haven't spent 6 years in AI and systems development and all this because you had to. You're doing it because you want to. Exactly. Like you can tell, like it's just built into you. Mm-hmm. Why not partner with people who look at everything through that lens? Like, and Drew and I say this too. Like, talk to us because we look at everything through an AI lens. Yeah. We every day we wake up, we think, what am I going to do today? Or if we're having a conversation with somebody, I'm sure it almost always ends with, have you thought about using AI to make that easier? Why not partner with people that look at everything through that lens so that you don't have to become that expert. Mm-hmm. Like the best leaders are the ones who make themselves the dumbest one in the room. Right. They surround themselves with people that are smarter than them. So because they understand that they cannot possibly be an expert in all areas of their business. Exactly. So, yep.
And I think some of the barriers we run into is getting up to speed on an organization's industry or way they work, right? And yeah, admittedly, of course, there's a little bit of an onboarding, right? There's a little bit of a learning curve if you as an organization bring on an outside partner like any one of us. But time and time again, and data would prove it, the benefits you get by having different thinking in the room. So you get over that little hump, you get over the 30 days or, whatever it takes to digest the information. And with AI tools now, we're finding what we do to onboard with our clients is we gather a lot of their information, take meeting transcripts, and we put it into a notebook LM. And then we just ask it to summarize it for us. And we continue to add different pieces of literature, and it becomes this living project knowledge. And nice. That's how we run all of our projects. And so even we're seeing it takes less time to get up to speed because before AI, if you were onboarding with a new client, you'd have to go meet and you have to just take notes and you'd have to think about it and try to remember the 10 different conversations you had and piece it all together. Now AI is accelerating that. But so for people to just be okay of, there's an onboarding, but the benefits, right? There's always trade-offs. So the trade-off of bringing a partner in is you might be a little bit slower to get started because there's a little bit of onboarding. And let's not try to fake that there isn't.
Right.
There is. Right. Let's just embrace it. It's part of the process.
Yep.
But what you get on the outside is somebody who's bringing frameworks, processes, lenses, ways of thinking to your organization that you would have never had before versus the trade-off if you just try to do it internally. You can skip over the onboarding. But think of what you lose on the other side of that if you don't, if you don't embrace it.
Exactly.
I think what you described is a great. It kills a couple of birds when you just talk about recording meetings for onboarding, because there's a behavior change right there. When you join a meeting and your AI note taker joins a meeting and nobody's seen one of those before, or they don't know what it is, you have to explain, like, I'm recording this meeting. And at the end, it's going to give me a transcript of everything we said. It's going to summarize the conversation. If there are to-dos in there, it's going to find those and it's going to put those in its own little section. And we're all going to get a copy of that at the end of this meeting. And then we're going to take that and all of our conversations, we're going to put them in this cool tool that's free, by the way, Notebook LM. For anybody that's listening, go watch some YouTube videos on how to use Notebook LM. It gets better every single day. That is a super powerful tool. But so now you've got a behavior change where you've got to get people used to being recorded in meetings, and that takes time. But then you're also introducing the idea that here's a very easy, low barrier to entry way to leverage AI to make your business better. Take these transcripts. If we're doing it with you, why can't you do that with your clients and start to do that? So it's such a easy little gateway to get into AI that I've found is it kind of helps kind of get that out of the way and get people a bit more comfortable with it. So
100%.
We got to wrap this up.
Oh, wow, that went really fast.
I know, it always does.
Holy cow.
Always does. I feel like when we get into the meat of the conversation, it's like, well, that's time.
Time to go.
wrap it up.
So, okay. So I always like asking this of our guests too. Where do you see this going in the future? Like, I know it's such a vague question, but yeah.
What is this?
Where do you see this going? Like, where do you see the biggest impact of AI happening in the next 3, 5, 10 years? Or by next Tuesday?
Yeah, it's like all the same
that's
at
how
this
fast
point.
it goes.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to maybe sound cheesy, but I think I really, really believe it in my heart. I think it's going to reimagine what's possible. And we see a lot about it's going to make us more human. And sometimes I brush it off, but there was a story I heard that just made that so real for me, and I want to figure out how to make this more real for others. And so the story was, and we were talking about efficiency with AI, and we were doing a bunch of interviews with our client's team, and we said, and this individual person was a landscape architect, right? And so we said, if you had 25% more time in your day, what would you do with it? And he sat back and then he looks up and he goes, you know what I'd do is I would go to the job site and I would pick up the soil and feel it in my hands. And I was like, amazing, like amazing. That is something that AI could never do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like that human experience, it's those moments that if all of us can become 25% more efficient with AI, which I believe is possible, imagine what we could do with that other 25% of the time. I think relationships are going to strengthen, quite honestly, if we're able to.
Yep.
There's a big push we also have the opportunity through Regeneris Labs or Innovation Lab to talk to some really big thinkers in the world. So Rita McGrath is kind of a well-known well-known strategist. And her and Michael Gervais, we've been able to talk to Michael Gervais, Finding Mastery podcast, and we're doing some thinking with them and just kind of some meetings. And I mean, the thought leaders like the Michael Gervais and the Rita McGrath, which are really pushing, even the Brene Brown, listening to the book on the way here, I mean, they are all pushing for, what do we say, a good life is what we talked about with Rita McGrath, a good life. And I really think AI has the opportunity to live into that good life by making us more efficient and then reimagining what's possible. And
I think if you let it, and that's what you were kind of hinting at earlier, if you let it to go back to those human components that AI cannot replace, like literally touching grass like that guy did.
Yeah.
In human interactions and strengthening versus I'm just going to replace it with more work.
Exactly. I think that's a trap we could easily fall into. Right.
I do think the younger generation is going to embrace that way more than our generation, because I see them going, why am I working so long and so hard when I really just want to do more of what I want to do.
Yeah, I'm
more passion kind of comes back into it.
Yeah, we're so excited. So I mentioned our alma mater is Michigan State, and we're able to do a capstone project this year. We Michigan State students working on Joyn Collective because we had a mutual professor, which is just so funny. It's like the world is so small sometimes.
Yeah.
And we went to Michigan State at different times, and this mutual professor was like, wait a minute, like I had you and I had you, and now you guys are starting a business together. I got to learn about this. And so we reconnect with her, and she runs a capstone project for her seniors. So we just met them yesterday. And I am so excited to hear what these 5 to 7, seniors at Michigan State are thinking about, AI and transformation.
Yeah.
And it'll just be, they ask me, like, what does success look like for you for this project? And yeah, there's a hard deliverable, but I'm like, I just want to learn from you guys. Like, I just am so genuinely curious to learn from you and how you think about these problems and how you approach it. And I cannot wait to dive into that more.
That's awesome. Well, Taryn, thanks for coming in. Thanks for being our guest on this. It was awesome talking with you. It's nice to have that cohort, kind of conversation that we're having. I love doing that.
We call it a collective.
Oh, yeah, it's a collective.
Sorry, collective. That does make sense. That's what I'm saying. It all makes sense. But I appreciate you coming in. Tell our viewers where they can find you.
Yes. Would love to connect. So you can find me directly on LinkedIn at Taryn Kutches. Also Joyn Collective, our website, JOYN collective.com. And then also my email is just directly Taryn, TARYN @joyncollective.com. So multiple ways to connect, and we're always welcome a conversation. It's just a conversation, right? So if you're curious about the work we do, curious about AI, curious about our perspective, shoot me a note, and I would absolutely love to connect.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me and for putting this podcast on. It's refreshing to just talk openly. It's great.
Yeah. It was the whole reason why we did it.
Love it.
And if you want to leave a comment down below how you're using AI, we would love to see what you're doing with it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Like and subscribe.